Welcome to day 2 of DLF's Multi-Species Focus Week, where we'll be looking at mixture selection and sowing multi-species swords. So today we'll take a look at some of the components of multi-species swords, and we'll also meet two dairy farmers, Carol Cassan and Kevin O'Hanlon, who have started using multi-species swords in their farms this year. We will also have a special update from our DLF colleagues in New Zealand. All this week we're giving you the chance to win 5 acres of seed for yourself and a friend. Just follow the posts on our social media to see the details on how to enter. For summaries and fact sheets on all the information covered each day, follow the link to our website. Don't forget, you can contact us directly with any questions that you might have throughout the week. First up, we'll see how Carol Cassan established his multi-species sword.
I had planned earlier on this year, this was the paddock that I was going to sow for my trial of multi-species. So back in May, there was some docks on this paddock, so I actually sprayed for docks. It was full spray off then after the next grazing in June, and then came in with a power harrow, and it was a single pass with a power harrow. So that's how establishment happened here. It got a bag of Tintin 20, and lime was actually sprayed on this paddock last year, so the pH was okay, and so I only gave it a couple of bags of gram lime this year during setting. We've got plantain, chicory, clovers, timothy and some ryegrass mix, so very, very happy with how it's taken. The first grazing was after about 8 weeks, so there was a cover of about 1,500 on it for the first grazing. After 8 weeks after setting it, it came really, really well. Now we were after probably a wet spell during mid-June into July here, so it probably helped with establishment. On the first grazing, the cows absolutely loved it, and they skinned it. There was absolutely nothing left. You can see the sward here, like after setting, I've had absolutely no issue with weeds or with docks or anything. It's completely clean. Actually, it's even more clean than, say, when I would have just set some ryegrass and had a post-emergent spray. Maybe it's a case of that the herbs with the wide leaves and the deep roots are actually helping from a dock point of view, that they're not getting a chance to establish here. The main kind of doubts I had when I was setting them first was, I'd say the biggest one was probably afraid of docks and if they actually got established ahead of the multi-species. But as I've mentioned, that hasn't been an issue. Like, there's absolutely no docks in the sward. Probably a second thing is where we are here, close enough to the Atlantic here in North Kerry, it's a high rainfall area. So you'll be wondering, will they actually survive here? But we are actually after a very, very wet year, and as you can see, everything is surviving so far. So I've had absolutely no issues with any of the fears that I did originally have.
A comment often put to us is that multi-species swords are only suitable for good land. This isn't necessarily the case. Obviously, any plant will grow well in ideal soil conditions, but some species are better adapted to cope with wet or dry soils. For example, in wet soils, we might think about timothy and burnet, whereas in dry soils, things like yarrow, lucerne and cocksfoot might work better. And then we have all-rounders like perennial ryegrass, white clover, plantain and chicory. So depending on your soil type, a mixture of all-rounders and some wet and dry specific species will be ideal. Plantain and chicory are commonly used as the herb portion of multi-species swords. Here's Alistair Moorhead from New Zealand to tell us more about plantain and chicory.
Hi, I'm Alistair Moorhead, Product Development Manager for Agricom, part of the DLF group in New Zealand. Today I'm going to have a quick discussion about chicory and plantain as far as their advantages and some of the handy hints to get them going and to get the best success from them. Both chicory and plantain are herbs that do benefit from being sown into warm conditions. They typically are used from spring sowing, where in the springtime very rarely do they throw seed head, so you get the advantage of the first summer and autumn being completely leafy. The big advantages of both herbs are that particularly in their first year, they are a wonderful protein source, and they are extremely high palatability and high digestibility, which means their intake isn't limited. So particularly sheep, but also cattle, can graze them and eat a lot more material than they can with just a grass-based pasture. Both plants are full of micronutrients. The chicory is particularly high in copper, while the plantain is high in copper and selenium, and in the right soils will also supply a very significant amount of cobalt. So both herbs provide advantages that can't be found in just ryegrass, white clover pastures. With the plantain, you tend to find it works a little bit better in slightly lower soil fertility than the chicory, which does love fertility, and that's probably the big separator. The plantain covers more soil types, fits well with clover. The chicory prefers high fertility and free draining soils.
The DLF 6-species herbal ley is a good all-round mixture that should do well on a broad range of soil types, but of course you can contact us directly and we can formulate a mixture specific to your soil. Kevin O'Hanlon tried 3 different methods of establishing his swords, and we'll see how we get on now.
Tried 3 different methods. The first one I did was just stitching chicory, plantain and white clover into an existing sward. Yeah, grazed it really tight first, sewed it with a disc and broadcaster on top, and went in and rolled it then after sowing, and I let dry cows into it then for about 9 days after, just to stop the regrowth. That just to stunt the grass and let light down to the chicory and plantain and white clover. The second two establishments were kind of similar. I sprayed off the paddock, just come in and disc, there was no ploughing. One of the paddocks I disced twice, and on the second discing I broadcast the seed. The 6-way species mix went out on it, and come in and rolled it, and that was kind of that field. There was no fertiliser involved. And the other paddock was just on the first disking. I broadcast the seed as I went, and I had trouble even seeing where I was going. That was that light on it, and that seemed to establish perfect as well. There was a big dock boarding in this paddock actually, and the sprayed off with Roundup, and it seems to have there's a few through it, but it's not. I'm not worried about them. Like, for the amount that's in it, I'm not worried about it. Like, if all the ground is covered, the weeds won't get through. And as you can see, most of the sward, the ground is covered. Like.
As we've seen, once we've selected the correct mixture, there are a range of ways to establish our multi-species swards. But one of the main points to remember is to get on top of weeds before sowing, as once the seed is sown, we cannot use any herbicides. Join us tomorrow where we'll get updates from the systems and environmental research at UCD, Teagasc and Waterford IT. All this week we're giving you the chance to win 5 acres of seed for yourself and a friend. Just follow the posts on our social media to see the details on how to enter. For summaries and fact sheets on all the information covered each day, follow the link to our website. Don't forget, you can contact us directly with any questions that you might have throughout the week.